The conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book, The Real Promotion, none other than Mr. John Reaves. Welcome back, Mr. John.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me again, Daniel, on a different show. It's
Yes,
great to be
different.
familiar with one another, so this is awesome.
Yes, and thank you for being part of Abstract Essay as well as Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Well, again, for those who have never heard of me, my name is John Reaves. And my latest book, The Real Promotion: 13 Lessons from the Classroom of Work, is a call to action. It's a challenge to take ownership of how we show up, choosing positive energy over passive frustration, and leadership over the status quo. Too many people think that their workplaces are war zones. They armor up, they brace for impact, and then they're fighting the same exhausting battle day after day. I reject that notion. My belief is the workplace is a classroom. It's a place to learn, grow, sharpen your character, and most importantly, build something better for ourselves and for those who are around us. So if you're ready to stop fighting and stop leading yourself, if you want to be in a better mindset and improve your growth, then the real promotion is for you.
Indeed, I like that the real promotion, Mr. John, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And so the most important promotion we'll ever receive is not the one given to you. It's the one you built with yourself. If you stop chasing titles and external validation tomorrow, what become the new measure of your success?
What's so great about that question, Daniel, is I think you chart your own course. So many of us get tied up in allowing others to define our definition of success, our validation process, and I believe all of it is inward. We have to define those terms for ourselves. Success may mean something to you, and it may mean something to me quite differently.
Mm.
So this journey that I took people on, I would hope folk that read my book go on, is all about your own journey. I just so happen to provide you with a lot of fun examples of my experiences and my journeys, primarily in the workplace. There's a few things that may have transpired outside of it, but generally it's all about some of my really fond experience and not so fond experiences in the workplace. And I'm really hopeful that others can, pick up the book, reflect on their own experiences, and ultimately come up with a plan to help them look at the workplace in different eyes.
Very well said, Mr. John. Think about the last time you felt genuinely proud of your work. What
Mm-hmm.
is tied to a rise or to raise a title or someone else's approval? Was what something you knew to be true about yourself, regardless of recognition?
Right, right. I love that question, Daniel, because I probably would say a little bit over 20 years ago or so, I decided that while it would be wonderful to have the titles, and of course, at that time, I actually did have, wonderful titles and all this good stuff, but I wanted to do more to help others, get to wherever it is they wanted to go, whether it was to go to college, whether it was to find themselves a better job within their current existing job, or for them to just go on a self exploration to determine what works for them. And my, I would say, biggest awards, if there's such a thing, is when people come to me and say, John, I just got a new job. And you know why? Because of a lot of the things that we talked about. Or when someone says, I was in a bad place, but I thought about you and I thought about some of the things that you shared with me. And I was able to take sort of a detour and think a little bit more reflectively and rise above the darkness. Those
Mm,
things mean so much more to me than any of the things that I've accomplished.
interesting. Mr. John, you argue that waiting to be recognized is no longer a viable strategy. Where in your career right now are you quietly waiting for someone above you to notice your efforts? And what would change if you stop waiting?
Right, right. I think it's totally a mindset. I have the great fortune to be in a capacity where I have specific things that I do to help my clients. And based on my clients' engagement, my clients' needs, I do everything that I can to address those needs. So for me, just having the job itself to provide and support this particular client or clients in my instance is plenty. But there are folk that are in roles where, let's just say they're given a project, and I'm just going to use an example. They're given a project and they're basically, doing everything they can to cross all of the T's, dot all of the I's, and so forth. And they present the project, completed and everything. And then they feel, well, what's next? Do I get a bigger raise? Do I get a better title? Do I get a larger project with more responsibilities? And what they're not thinking about is, well, what did you learn in the process? What did you learn in that job that you could actually transport to either another role or pour into somebody else? It can't always be about moving to sort of the next level. And I think when people stop trying to think about, oh my God, am I going to get this next job? If I'm going to get the next raise, you're going to continue to be on this, I call it treadmill, that's absolutely going nowhere. As we know, when you get on a treadmill, you set the timer. And oddly enough, you can set it for 20 minutes, you can set it for an hour, but at the end of the day, that treadmill is not going to move. You have to get off of the treadmill in order to move. And that's how I like to think about the whole thing about a promotion. When you're waiting in line for someone else to, say, yep, it's your turn, you get this title and so forth, then my response is, then what? You got the promotion, now what? Now you're trying to figure out, how can I go to the next level? And there may be some jobs where there very well may not be a next level. And you have to decide, what's the next level for me? And that's why when you stop chasing titles, you stop looking for validation through others and start thinking through, what can I do in life to be impactful, not only to myself, but to others? Then you're never running a race. You're just constantly doing everything you can to be better and to help others be better.
Beautifully articulated, Mr. John. If your internal promotion were announced tomorrow, a new level of clarity, authority, and self trust you'd earn, what would the promotion be called and what would allow you to be differently?
I'm not really sure I have a term or a name for it. I
Mm,
would probably say one of the fun things for me is, at least in the last 20 years or so, I try to read a book a week. And in reading that book a week, it enables me to learn something new, apply something different to all of the great stuff that I've already learned and been able to apply in various different settings. And I like to think of myself as a life learner, which means that you never stop learning. Because my belief is, the day that I stop learning, I might as well just, start digging a hole in the ground and jump in, because
true.
ultimately, I think that's when life stops, at least for me. And that's why my real promotion is all about being able to always learn and always do whatever I can to pour into someone else and then to explore new ways to help others all at the same time. But the learning thing again is everything to me. In fact, I believe the learning is the real promotion is chapter I want to say 4 in my book, and that learning has always been my refuge. And just to kind of go a little bit deeper, every layoff I've ever experienced, I've always been in a situation where I reflect on what happened and then I start thinking through what can I learn new to take into the next opportunity. And that's always been my compass. When there's a moment for me to decompress, whether it is from a job, whether it is just from, a big project or something I've been working on, I'm always going to pick up a book or find something new to learn because I believe that learning is fuel. And like people put gas in the car, whether it's a book, video, or even conversations with folks, that is my fuel.
Mm. Well, that's amazing and empowering. Mr. John, you observe that organizations have become more transactional and that loyalty is no longer guaranteed. What did you first learn this lesson in your own career and what did it cost you?
Wow, transactional. Yes. Many situations, whether it's in corporate America or even doing volunteer work, oftentimes there's what they would call the transactional effect. What can you do for me, or what can I do for you? What are you going to do for me if I do this, and vice versa. And my belief is we really got to get out of that mindset of, trying to figure out what we're going to get from it versus what can you do to make someone else's situation better. And in the end, you benefit from that, especially if that person, moves the needle in their own lives. I think for me, one of the sort of, I would call it positive spins in my life that has been really cool is that, and I've continued to say this numerous times, the more folk are measuring their worth by external validation, they're going to find themselves in a deep world of trouble. And then what I've learned is that my fulfillment isn't awarded by an organization, it's built internally through intentional growth. And then my intentional growth again is doing things that challenge me, doing things that get me to stay out of my comfort zone. And then when I do make a mistake or a stumble and so forth, I reflect on it. And then I take a step back. And once I've had an opportunity to assess what transpired, I go back in with the new knowledge that I've learned so that I can be better and that I can help others be better. So I would just say ultimately that I wish the word transactional was taken out of most people's vocabulary because I don't really think it serves a real purpose, especially if you're trying to build something great, whether it is in yourself or others.
Mr. John, in the era of layoff and burnout, you emphasizes building internal strength to navigate uncertainty. What's one internal validations you've been clinging to that, if released, would actually free you to be more resilient?
I'm going to answer that two different ways. Probably one of the biggest things that's very, very critical in my life is my health. I believe that you are no good to no one else if your physical and your mental health is not strong. In fact, chapter 7 in my book, Health is Your First Promotion. I believe that, and I've always taken that very seriously. And probably in the last many years, I've even been more hypersensitive because as you get older, you don't really have all that much control over some of the things your body want to do. But if you really work diligently to make sure that you have balance and that you're setting boundaries, in fact, one of my favorite quotes from the book, my book is, and it's in my boundaries chapter. If you cannot set boundaries, if you are exhausted, You cannot listen well if your mind is overcrowded. You cannot lead authentically if your body is signaling distress. So I would tell you that health is one number one on my list. A second number two, or a really strong contender, is integrity. I cannot overemphasize to you that I have been in numerous situations where it's been tested. And for me, the idea that I can sleep every night knowing that I made the best decision based on the information that I had, and the decision, it could have very well been impactful, but it wasn't one of those situations where I'm tossing and turning because I felt that I could have done something differently, or worse, that I did something that impacted so many people that they're not able to sleep at night or even have jobs because of my decision making. So I feel really good about that. But the integrity piece is really, really important to me. And from a consequence perspective, there have been numerous instances of some of them I actually talk about in the book where I've been put in a really hard situation, either do the right thing or face being fired. In fact, very quickly, I was in a situation where I was asked to shred some documents, and I clearly knew that the documents were should not have been shredded for a lot of different reasons. But in the end, what I did was I went to my manager and asked the question, can I be removed from the project because I did not want to not only shred these documents, I just don't want to be in a position of compromising our firm or the company that I was doing the service for. And ultimately, I was allowed to leave the project. But one of the other things I did was raised the red flag and said, do we really want to work for a client that's putting us in these type of compromising positions? Now, a lot of my peers kind of watched on the sidelines and said, well, we're going to see what happens. Fortunately for me, everything worked out fine. But ultimately, the company that I was asked to do this for had got a big audit and they had to pay a significant fine. Now, in retrospect, a lot of people would probably say today, I wish I would follow John's lead. But at the same time, my lead was lonely because a lot of people thought I was going to get fired or walked out the door. But what happened was is that I had a manager that at least respected my opinion and allowed me to move on versus putting me in a situation that compromised my integrity and ultimately would have, from a long-term perspective, been something that I've been fighting with that I could have done differently. So I can tell you that most in my professional career, I don't have a lot of situations that I wrestle with at night because I did something that was clearly um, that would question my integrity. My belief is if I can't have a conversation with my kids, not necessarily my wife, but my kids about an action that I've taken, then it's probably wrong.
Very well said, Mr. John. The book is structured around 13 lessons from the classroom of work. Without having read them, what the top three lessons your own career has taught you so far?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the whole piece that I've talked about, for years. I thought I did everything right. I worked hard, I earned all of the credentials, yet I felt stuck. I felt like I was constantly waiting to be noticed, waiting to be chosen. And then that's when I realized that I was tying my worth to someone else's decision. And ultimately, I knew I had to do something different. I knew I had to change. The real promotion, the 13 chapters, a lot of people have asked me the question, well, why 13 chapters? Why not 10? Why not 20? Well, I think what ultimately happened, I probably could have had 30 chapters, but I thought that maybe this is an opportunity to start with 13 and do a part two. But these 13 categories were what resonated with me. And to tell you sort of a fun fact, one of the things I did last year was I wrote a bunch of different articles on some of these categories. I wrote about integrity, I wrote about mentorship, I wrote about learning and feedback, and I wrote various articles on LinkedIn to see kind of what kind of feedback I would receive. So after a period of time, I got very strong feedback and said, yep, these are the types of uh, subjects that I need to discuss in the book, and then of course expanded it to other things. But I will tell you that for me, what's so cool about the book is that you don't have to read it in order. You can read chapter 12, you can read chapter 2. They all are autonomous and they all are applicable.
Resilience is another pillar of your framework. Think a professional setback that at the time felt devastating. Looking back, what did the moment teach you that you could not have learned any other way?
I would probably say resilience really comes pretty clear to me in some of my layoffs. And again, I've experienced three. And I would say the second layoff, it occurred, I was in a different state, that I didn't have family members. It was just pretty much my family. And it was a time where I really loved the job. I loved the city that I was in, but the company decided to go in a different direction, and that was fine. But it was probably one of those situations where I was just so I was so taken back because I loved the job, recognizing that just because you love the job and just because you do good work doesn't necessarily mean you'll stay employed. So, what I ultimately had to do was decide what course of action we wanted to take. So, we decided to move to another city. I ultimately got another job. And then, I was reflecting through during that time, what did I want my next steps to be? What did I want them to look like? And there, I started doing a lot of writing. I actually finished my PhD and just took on a lot of volunteer work that I was really interested in. So for me, it was an interesting time in my professional career and life that I just said I'm going to go on a complete different journey so that when I am ready to assume that next opportunity, that not only that I'll be physically and mentally ready, that I will be sharper, that I will be stronger, and I will be able to apply all of the things that I learned during the period that I was off from work. So, resilience for me basically is if anybody that can bounce back from a layoff or for some major setback that they have had, I think you come through so much better. At least I did. And I'm hopeful that others, when they think about their own challenges and they reflect upon them, that they hopefully will be able to say, I came through this so much better, but it wasn't easy. Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry for that,
Yep.
Mr. Reeves. For those 4 on 3 decades on corporate leadership, consulting, and education, if you could sit across from him and ask one piece of advice about your current career crossroads, what would you ask?
I want to make sure that I understood the question. You're saying, based on some of my experiences, what
Hmm.
type of question I would ask myself?
Yes, please.
I probably would say one of the most fun questions that I would probably ask myself is, in all of the things that you experience, all of the environments you've worked in, all of the people you've met, what is the constant that stuck with you throughout all of those experiences and so forth? And to keep you going, to keep you motivated. And I would probably say to you, if I was asking myself that question or someone asked me the question as well, I
Mm.
would say just my strong desire to make a difference. Even when I first started my very first job, it was all about what can I do to make sure that those who I work with are having a positive experience. I had the great fortune to start my professional career with in the federal government of all places. You would think I had a fellowship when I was in college, and I had the great fortune to start in an environment where there were a lot of smart people, but they showed me things about uh, politics, office politics, I should say, um, lot of red tape, all of the normal stuff that you would experience in the government workplace. But the biggest thing that I really enjoyed and appreciated, there were so many people there that took me under their wing and they supported me and they mentored me and they really made me excited very early about the course that I was going on. But that was also the place to directly answer your question that one of the best things that I learned in the federal government and I've taken across my entire career is being able to document. Specifically, whether it's taking meeting notes, whether it is being able to produce presentations, whether it is to even speak at presentations. I really got my start with the federal government because even though I was just fresh out of high school and I was early in college, they really didn't hold back. They really put me in situations where I had to do presentations. I had to have strong writing skills. I had to document stuff. And that really was sort of my launching pad. So when I think about all of the roles I've been in, whether it is managing director, whether it's a VP or so, whatever the case is, I always find myself, whether I'm in a meeting, whether I'm in a conference room, I find myself documenting what's transpiring because I believe that the person who is writing the notes have the most power in the room because they have an opportunity to put their purview on what happened in the meeting. And even though we have AI and a lot of other great tools that can take notes, I will tell you there's nothing like having a person that can scan the room, provide strong information on what transpired, as well as recommendations on what needs to be done. So, out of all of the things that I've said and all of the questions you asked related to this, it would be the ability to document and make sure that I am clear on what's being asked of me, and most importantly, that if I'm asked to do notes from a meeting, that everybody's clear on what's happening.
Beautifully articulated, Mr. John. And to wrap up our discussion for today, the book's trailer as views to consider what real promotion means for them. If you had to define in one sentence for yourself, what would your sentence be?
My sentence would be stop waiting for others to define you and choose yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful, Mr. John. Choose yourself. Be real you, and the real promotion starts with yourself. So, Mr. John, can you please invite the listeners for the real promotion?
Yeah, so again, real promotion is available everywhere. But a fun fact, I'm just starting a YouTube channel because a number of people have asked me various questions about my career journey, as well as just different things that they don't feel they're living in their own workplaces. So I recently just launched it. So if you go onto YouTube and type in my name, John Reaves, my YouTube channel will come up and you can actually put in questions. Or you can even just go to my website and if you have any questions or more clarity on something, please feel free to do so. So yes, I absolutely want you to read the book, but at the same time, if you want to have some dialogue or if you feel like there are questions that you have about your professional journey and you need someone to give you some perspective, send me a note and I will probably respond.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. John A. Reeves because if you support him, more and more empowering the real promotion. So, Mr. John, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. As always, you've been amazing host. I appreciate your time and thank you for the awesome questions.
Likewise, empowering answer, Mr. John. I hope our viewers and listeners empowered.
Me too.
Definitely more to come, people. See you soon.
Yep. Bye.